Hi my frogs, and welcome back to my channel. Today we will be reading The Doctor Who Dances with the Dawn on AO3 by Bun Bun. It's honestly a fic I've been wanting to read for a while, and I'm glad that I finally get the chance to. So, let's get into it. Summary. Tanjiro dropped to his knees and bowed his head until his head touched the ground. "Thank you, Doctor!" he cried. "Thank you so much for helping my family. I swear as the eldest son I will work to pay off any medical debts for as long as it takes. Even if it takes my whole life, I'll do it gladly. Thank you!" To his surprise, the doctor didn't respond, and Tanjiro raised his head. Yoriichi's cheeks were flushed slightly, and he was holding his hands up in an anxious protest. "There's no debt to pay," he insisted, in a voice that was as soft as his scent. "You owe me nothing." A slayer of old is reincarnated. Haunted by memories that he doesn't understand, of blood and regret, he vows to never hold a blade, and takes up the mantle of a healer instead. Chapter 1. Yoriichi spent most of his early life as something of a ghost. He'd been adopted as a baby. Nobody really knew what happened to his biological family, but it seemed he'd simply been abandoned. Initially, the couple that took him in were quite enthusiastic at the prospect. They were wealthy and didn't like to be bothered, and he was an unusually quiet baby. He didn't fuss or complain. He wasn't messy. All he did was stare at the world with wide, solemn eyes. As the lady of the house held him and cooed for her friend, and how much motherhood suited her. The enthusiasm diminished as he grew. Yoriichi wasn't just a quiet boy. He was silent. He never spoke, never laughed, never cried. He didn't play with the other children in the village. The silence had begun to get on the nerves of his family, with it especially irritating his father. A man wanted a strong, noble son. A silent, demure shadow was of no use to him. Yoriichi couldn't help it when his father tried to get him to hold the blade. Something primal deep within his soul screamed. He saw his hands drenched in blood in his mind's eye. Feelings swirled with no context or origin. A terrible sorrow and regret permeated it, and his being right down his bones. If he held a sword, he feared he would lose himself. Those feelings would overwhelm him and drown him until there was nothing left. So he refused. When Yoriichi's mother began to show signs of a successful pregnancy, he knew it wasn't long before he was sent away. By the time that negligence has shifted into outright dislike, in particular it frustrated his parents, that he had never stopped referring to himself as Yoriichi. They had picked a different name for him as a baby, but not once had he ever responded to it. He felt a bit guilty about that, but it wasn't something he could help. His name was Yoriichi. He'd always known that. The day his mother gave birth was the day they declared he was to be sold. They had a child of their own blood now. They had no use for a spare. He'd seen it coming, but even so, the revelation, English, left him aching with a terrible sense of loneliness. It was then that the old doctor found him. Dr. Yukimura was a man, and upon first glance seemed like nothing more than a humble traveler, but with a discerning eye. And discrepancies began to show through that front. The pack he wore on his back was too large and heavy for a man and his age, yet he carried it with ease. His eyes looked cloudy with cataracts, yet he never seemed to bump into anything. And most relevant to Yoriichi's case, he seemed as though he would have no money on him, and yet his mother watched with wide eyes as his father counted through the shiny coins that had been handed to him. Unceremoniously, without a single shed tear or even a glance in his direction, Yoriichi was thrust towards the man by his former parents. His heart ached, but yet it said nothing, and silently followed after the old man. Once they were a good distance away, the doctor turned to him. "Well, you're free now. Go on, get out of here." Yoriichi didn't move. Dr. Yukimura looked unimpressed. "I know you can hear me, boy. But if those two weren't worth it, go seek your fortune elsewhere." In his soft voice, Yoriichi finally spoke. "I have nowhere else to go. May I come with you?" The doctor stared at him for a moment, as though waiting for a punchline. When one never came, the old man's jaw dropped. "Come on, boy. What is it that you think I do?" Yoriichi didn't falter. You save people. I want to be able to save people too. Is that so? The old man's eyes narrowed, but not in suspicion, but in contemplation. It won't be easy. I'm not an ordinary doctor. I find and make my own medicine. I carry my own supplies. I go where I'm needed, and where I'm needed tends to be dangerous and bloody. Yoriichi simply nodded. The old man stepped closer and looked him dead in the eye. You better understand, and that it's just not disease we battle against in the field. Demons are real, and they don't discriminate between who they slaughter. Being young isn't going to save you. Do you still want to go? Yes, sir. A momentary look of mirth crossed the old man's face, and he started. Don't call me sir. Call me teacher or doctor, or you asshole. But sir makes me feel old, and I don't need any more reminders of that. It was nearly imperceptible, but at that, a tiny smile warmed Yoriichi's face, and that lonely emptiness, at least for the moment, was filled. Dr. Yukimura had not been lying when he said that this would be a back-breaking work. The exertion alone of carrying heavy supplies at the pace the pair traveled at was exhausting enough. Compounded with the sheer amount of information he was being fed, Yoriichi, decades of experience, all being compressed into the mind of a preteen, it would be easy to be overwhelmed, but Yoriichi never complained. There was a part of him that wondered why physical labor wasn't easier. He didn't know why, but he had a strange gut instinct that he should be stronger. But he just wasn't. It was a perplexing feeling. He had no basis in reality, so he forced himself to ignore it. If he wanted to be stronger, he would have to get there the same way everyone else did. In the years spent together, Dr. Yukimura taught him much. Yoriichi learned about plants and herbs that could be grounded and mixed into medicine to relieve all sorts of ailments. He learned how to perform surgery and reset bones. He learned how to sew wounds closed. He even learned how to handle childbirth, although he sincerely hoped he would never have to be in that particular situation. Something about the specific scenario of labor was absolutely terrifying to him, and the mere thought of it made his gut clench and roll with nausea. Yukimura laughed it off as being prudish and frightened of intimate relationships with women, but Yoriichi wasn't so sure about that. The doctor also taught him about demons. Apparently Yukimura has been a member of something called Demon Slayer Corps. He had been a non-combatant role, but he still learned how to defend himself against demons. The sun could kill them, also certain types of poisons. There's also a type of blade that could do the trick, but they had no access to anything like that. Even if they did, Yoriichi wouldn't have been able to bring himself to wield it. Dr. Yukimura was not a warm man. He was gruff and blunt and struggled with showing affection. That, combined with Yoriichi's wallflower tendencies, meant the pair were less than inclined to have heartfelt conversations or share emotions. But even with their mutual inability to share words, they still showed care for each other in their own ways, like making the other's favorite foods when they had time and ingredients for it. Yukimura, upon learning of Yoriichi's deep-seated fear of holding his sword, did not mock or bully him as his father once had. Instead, he honed his students' reflexes to a razor-sharp point. If you can't hit him, at least make sure they can't hit you, Yukimura reasoned. It was during one of these sessions when the old man stopped him, a furrow between his brows. Boy, do you have any familiarity with the breathing form? Yoriichi simply blinked in response. Yes, I am breathing. He received a slight swat in the head. I'm aware I was talking about the forms that the Demon Slayers use. Apparently you have no idea what I'm talking about, but those stances are unmistakable. Where did you learn such a thing? Surely not from those swine who sold you. Those two are far too talentless for something like this. Yoriichi shook his head. I was just moving the way that felt natural. Yukimura hummed in response. I see. Well, it's a strange coincidence, but there's no denying you have a gift. After that, the doctor insisted Yoriichi began learning something called total concentration breathing, which he was to use as he evaded. The technique improved his strength and stamina dramatically. He felt a strange instinct that he should be stronger, but somehow, once he more pushed the irksome notion aside. One day, Dr. Yukimura declared that he would be passing away in a month's time. The old man began to set his affairs in order. Yoriichi protested this, demanding to know how he could be so sure of such a thing, but a flick between the eyebrows silenced him. I know my body, boy. I can sense things within myself far more clearly than the average person. Besides, this was going to happen eventually. His gaze was uncommonly warm. Not many have the fortune of knowing when their time's almost at an end. I will not disregard this gift. The pair journeyed to the doctor's hometown, which he hasn't visited in years. There, Yukimura showed Yoriichi in his sights. In particular, the old man was interested in the peach orchard that he had once frequented. The owner of the orchard was a tiny elderly man with a peg leg, and a similarly gruff personality to the Yoriichi's teacher. It wasn't surprising that they were old friends. They were quickly invited in for tea and refreshments. You managed to snack a successor? You, of all people? The man, his name was Jigoro, cackled. I'm amused he didn't run for the hills and call you a demon like they used to back in the day. Yoriichi turned eyes wide to the teacher, who snorted. The slayers used to run from me, he explained. When I came to treat them, bunch of ingrates. English. He slapped a hand on Yoriichi's shoulder. Well, they don't have to wet their pants and cry anymore. This boy had a far gentler hand than I. Oh! So it was your hand they were running from. You sure it wasn't your face? Jigoro asked with playful rudeness. Ah! Well, better looking than me, so again, nothing to worry about. The slayer died down. The laughter died down. Jigoro wore a thoughtful expression. A successor. Perhaps it would be a good idea for me to find one as well. I'll admit, hearing that you will pass on soon has had me feeling rather motivated. Yukimura downed his tea in one gulp. Life doesn't last forever, my friend. If you'd regret not having one, then you know what you must do. Dr. Yukimura passed away in his sleep, with a smile on his face and Yoriichi by his side. The old man had left his pupil everything he owned since he had no family. A letter left behind by the doctor instructed him to use the money wisely. I know you soft fool, it read. I know you damn well you won't charge money for your services if the patient looks like they can't afford it. So consider this a safety net. Good intentions and a kind heart aren't going to keep your belly full and a roof over your head. Yoriichi smiled softly. It was true. He had no intention of charging his patients money. He hadn't asked the Dr. Yukimura that he teach him out of a desire for wealth. The old man's death left him very sad, but not in the same way that being sold had. The ache was bittersweet, warmed by fond memories and well wishes. Knowing in advance, having time to mentally prepare as well, Yoriichi had readied himself to depart the village. Jigoro stopped by. Take care of yourself, young man, the retired demon sir instructed. You seem like the type to burn yourself out for the sake of others. Just remember that you need to look out for yourself, too. Jigoro wagged Yoriichi's leg with his cane, causing the boy to stumble to his height. Looking eye to eye, he added firmly, I told Yukimura to look after you instead, so should you ever find yourself in a bind, return to my orchard. I'll be there. With that, he was sent off with a wave and a basket laden and down with peaches. 3 months after the death of Yukimura, Yoriichi encountered a demon for the first time. He was treating a young man who had fallen from a tree when foraging for fruit to feed his family. The boy had no broken bones, luckily, but a large gash had been torn in his abdomen and he was bleeding heavily from it. Yoriichi had just finished sewing the wound shut when he sensed something unnatural, like it was a tug on his sixth sense. And absolutely certainly something was wrong. Quietly, he handed the roll of bandages to the boy's mother, instructing her to wrap the wound and stay inside before he stepped out from the humble hut into the cool night air. His exit startled the demon, who had been stealthily creeping forward and made its way towards the door. Now caught, it drew itself up to its full monstrous height. The hideous creature was maybe double Yoriichi's height, with gray bubbly skin and milky bulging eyes. It licked its lips and stared down at him. Well, what do we have here? It isn't every day that a tender morsel simply walks up to me. Do you have a death wish, brat? Please leave, Yoriichi tonelessly responded. The demon's eyebrow twitched in his amused expression, shifted to one of annoyance. What's wrong with you, you shitty kid? Hey, this is the part where you scream and run, then I kill you. You're trespassing. Please go away. A vein pulsed in the demon's forehead. Are you broken or something? Open your mouth and scream! With that, the demon lunged forward, her clawed hand extended. Yoriichi, he effortlessly ducked under its arm. Further enraged, the demon wheeled about and charged again, only to be met with a similar result. Again and again, the monstrous creature attacked, and without fail, Yoriichi danced out of its grasp, unbeknownst to the demon, and with its furious tunnel vision, and the two fell into a hypnotic pattern. In a span of time that felt like minutes, hours passed. Unwilling partners in a dance of death, the demon endlessly lunged forward, unaware of the slowly lightening sky as it pursued its slippery prey. Dawn broke and the sun's rays crested the horizon. The demon never even had a chance to consider retreating into the shadows as it disintegrated on the spot, its feet still moving until the very end. Yoriichi, as though coming out of a trance, stumbled to a halt. He felt oddly overwhelmed, like he was on the cusp of unearthing an important memory. But even as he strained to reach for it, it receded, slipping away into a shadowed corner of his mind. He was offered no time to dwell on the particular sensation. The family in the hut had seen everything. They all but dragged him back inside, regardlessly cheering for his victory against the man-eating demon. Apparently the beast had been rumored to be terrorizing the village for some time now. While Yoriichi stubbornly refused to accept any payment for the treatment of the boy who had fallen from the tree, he was much less successfully resisting the passionate villagers. They had a little money to give, but even so, the ample amounts of dried meat and root vegetables were piled into his arms. And the threadbare Hakaman kimono eagerly replaced by a warmer set, head by the elderly village seamstress. The obstinate woman had an especially hard one for Yoriichi to say no to. With her domineering personality easily steamrolling over his own soft-spoken nature. Take this too, she demanded, brandishing a dark red Hawari at him. You were heading towards the mountain, right? Right? It's cold there. Besides, that color's perfect for you. Much better than that dull black you favor. Privately, Yoriichi found himself agreeing. Red was a nice color. Even so, let me pay for it. It was the one thing to replace my old clothes, but I was not wearing a Hawari, I insist. If you don't take it, I'll throw it into the river. Put this on this instant! Thoroughly defeated by a tiny old woman, Yoriichi pulled on the Hawari. The fabric was indescribably soft and warm. Is that a smile I see? The seamstress cooed. That's all the payment I need, Doctor. At that title, Yoriichi felt a flutter of shock before his smile grew wider. Yoriichi wasn't fully certain why he'd been drifting towards the mountain. It was a bewitching, irresistible pull, a strange combination of longing, nostalgia, and duty. He learned through experience not to ignore the extrasensory perception of his, so he had made no effort to resist the pull. In the village at the foot of the mountain, he made some inquiries about what might be the cause of the draw. Not much to note about the mountain, a gangly man mused the question. But there is a family of charcoal sellers that live up there. Real nice people. The kids come here every now and again, especially the eldest boy. Those parents are lucky having such cute and polite children. The man laughed into a tangent about how he would love to get married to the pretty gal and have a family of his own. And Yoriichi found himself wishing he had his teacher's ability to immediately extract himself from the conversation. He finally managed to escape the man after deftly turning down the offer to go drinking together. I don't drink. He lied easily, and that was the end of that. He would never be able to brusquely turn conversations in his favor, the way a Dr. Yukimoto was able to. At least he had mastered the art of telling little white lies. The practice had seemed to him immoral once back and he never needed to speak, just let his teacher do all the talking for him. But since he had been traveling on his own, he learned that sometimes in order to avoid conflict, people needed to hear what they wanted to hear. Just as the seamstress had claimed, the mountain was indeed quite cold. Clouds lay thick and heavy in the sky. It seemed that it was going to snow soon. As soon as Yoriichi was busy trying to calculate how much time he had to reach his destination, he made a shockingly clumsy blunder and stepped right onto the surface of a frozen puddle. Immediately, the thin ice cracked on contact, and both his feet were plunged into the icy water. He quickly retreated and back away from the cold, but not soon enough. His tabby socks were soaked. Even worse, the strap of his sandals had broken. Yoriichi stared in amazement at his feet before a huff of self-deprecating laughter escaped from him. He must have truly been possessed by the mountain if he could make such an absent-minded blunder. Resigned, he tugged his waterlogged footwear and stowed them in his bag. Barefoot it was then. Fortunately for Yoriichi, the path was relatively smooth. Even if it was a bit chilly, he had briefly contemplated heading back down to the village, but he quickly dismissed the notion. Judging by how long he'd been walking, he was halfway there towards his destination. It would take just as long to move forward, so there was no point in turning back now. The earth was cold and slightly damp beneath his feet as he continued onward. Soon, when his breath felt like visible puffs in the air, the soft red Halari was a blessing, and he even tucked his hands into it gratefully. Eventually, he was able to catch the subtle scent of smoke, and he felt another heady rush of nostalgia. His pace quickened. When the little house came into view, the feeling overwhelmed him to the point of bringing him to a standstill. He felt a desperate urge to take everything in, and so he did, absorbing the sight of the little house and the view behind it. Some aspects didn't feel so familiar to him, specifically when it came to the house itself. But still, the feeling persisted. Was it the view then? His gaze shifted towards the horizon. He couldn't tell. Definitely, he was aware that he could hear voices from inside the home, but it wasn't until someone exited the residence and made a sound of surprise that he turned towards them. The sight of a person before him made him feel as though he had been punched in the stomach. If he thought the land around him seemed familiar, there was nothing compared to the boy he was looking at. Dark red hair, green checkered clothing, and large wine-colored eyes. He knew this boy, didn't he? The boy's eyes widened as well. But the expression was one of concern, not recognition. "Are you alright?" he cried, the volume of his voice making Yoriichi jump. Before he knew how to process what was happening, the boy was right in front of him, clutching his arms and tugging towards the home. "You aren't wearing any shoes. You must be freezing." Yoriichi protested. "It's alright. I'm not that cold." But it didn't seem like the boy was listening. "Tanjiro, what's going on?" "Who's that guy?" A younger boy with a beauty mark was in the process of wrapping his scarf around his neck. It looked like he was getting ready to leave. Actually, now that he was paying attention, the boy who had dragged him in and had a similar taste of dress. Had he interrupted something? "Concentrate." Yoriichi held up his hands. "My apologies for disturbing you. You seem occupied." "Not at all." Tanjiro, if you heard correctly. He said earnest. "Well, that is, we are busy, but if you aren't being a bother, there's no way we leave. But you are being a bother. There's no way we leave a traveler out in the cold. But we've got to get going, though," said the young boy. The younger boy shrugged, looking apologetic. "If we wait much longer, the storm might leave us stranded in town." Yoriichi nodded in understanding and turned towards the door immediately. Tanjiro grabbed his arm again. "Wait!" the boy protested. "You can stay here while we're gone. My mother and my other siblings are gathering food right now, but my father could really use some company before we get back. Won't you please stay with him?" Yoriichi cocked his head to the side, baffled at the flawlessly guileless expression. He genuinely couldn't tell if Tanjiro was saying what he needed to hear to keep him inside, or if his father was truly lonely. Certainly, this young man had to be a skilled manipulator. Dr. Jekimu would have been impressed, unable to do anything but obediently nod. Yoriichi was left waving goodbye to two fascinatingly familiar strangers, as if he was left alone in their house with their father. Stranger things happened, he supposed. Tanjiro, as he raced down the mountain with Taiko at his heels, that day he had played out differently. He had the time. He would have loved to stay and make the teenager who showed up with no shoes and heavy overlarge pack comfortable. Under ordinary circumstances, the eldest son of the Commodore family would have dropped everything in an instant into brew some tea and swaddled the poor lost stranger in blankets. But to his chagrin, this was not an ordinary day. His father had fallen extremely ill. Tanjiro Commodore had been sick for quite some time. The illness had set in when Tanjiro was still young enough to be confused about what was happening, to wonder why his father wasn't giving him piggyback rides or racing up and down the mountain anymore. For whatever reason, Tanjiro had never been able to fully shake the ailment. There were good days and bad days, but ordinarily the bad days lasted so long. But lately, that hadn't been the case. His condition was rapidly worsening. This morning had been the hardest one by far. Tanjiro's face tight with pain, unable to eat anything as a cold sweat trickled down his brow. If something wasn't done soon, there was a chance he wouldn't make it through the night. There was a chance of the current frenzied nature of the Commodore household. What was the cause of the current frenzied nature of the Commodore household? His mother and other siblings, hoping a healthy meal with rapidly rapidly fading mass and good. As Tanjiro and Takio they were in the pursuit of the doctor who lived in a village at the mountain's base. Tanjiro? Takio called out from behind his brother. In response, Tanjiro slowed down a bit so he could hear him more clearly. Was it a good idea for us to leave some wanderer alone with Dad? What if he robs us or something? It's not like Dad could stop him in his condition. Tanjiro let a small laugh escape him. I understand how it could seem worrisome, but it's okay. The guy's scent was very soft and gentle. There's no way someone like that would do us any harm. Takio looked surprised, but relieved at the same time. I sort of figured you aren't the type to gamble. His voice wobbled a little bit, and he cleared his throat, doing his best to pretend his eyes weren't watering. Just kind of worried, that's all. Tanjiro's heart clenched. He'd often fought to keep his own voice steady. It'll be okay. We'll tell the doctor what's going on, and I'm sure he'll be able to help. He tried very hard not to think about the fact that that very same doctor had not been able to cure his father before. No one had. He couldn't think like that. He couldn't stand for it. Even his father couldn't be cured completely. Some medicines helped a little at least. So he told himself that everything would be okay and kept running. They were met with the devastating news. Upon arriving in the village, sweaty and out of breath, they made their way immediately to the doctor's residence. With a sorrowful expression, the man and son told them that the doctor passed away just 3 days ago. With despair sitting hot and heavy in Tanjiro's stomach with bile, he whispered his condolences. Takio didn't say anything, overwhelmed by silent tears. But as bad as that was, that still wasn't the worst of it. Snow had already begun to fall as the siblings made their journey. But now the wind had picked up too. The gusty conditions, combined with the fresh powdered snow, meant that there was no way that they could travel back home safely. Old Man Saburo had all but dragged them into his home and scolded them for trying, telling them that they already knew what they already knew was to be true. Even if their father passed away in the night, the two of them dying in a blizzard to reach him would be a futile and tragic end. Even so, bitter tears rolled down Tanjiro's cheeks when he noticed his brother wasn't looking. He could smell the misery in the soul of Takio for crying. He just had to be strong for his little brother. He knew it. It just hurt. At least everyone else was there with the father. Mother would know what to do, and Nezuko would look after the others. And maybe the presence of that traveler with the soft scent would help too. He just wished he could be there to say goodbye. This was with heavy hearts and tired eyes to do a trek back home. Despite the poor sleep, they kept a swift pace. There was a chance that their father had already pulled through the night, and they could still spend a little more time together. But at this point, Tanjiro's desperate optimism had faded. Even if he could keep it up, Takio's nerves were frayed from stress, and it likely only would have made his brother angry. But I'm pretending thinking that everything would be fine. After what felt like an eternity walking in silence, their home eventually came into view. Without a need to consult each other, they both broke into a run. In their haste, they very nearly bowled over Nezuko, who rounded the corner while holding a basket full of laundry. At the sight of them, her eyes grew wide and delighted. Nezuko! Tanjiro stammered, completely off guard by the cheerful expression. He was not given time to finish speaking as his sister grabbed both him and Takio and bodily yanked them into the home. Father! Tanjiro and Takio are home! She sang. Tanjiro couldn't believe his eyes. The scene before him was wondrous and impossible. He even took a few tentative sniffs to the air and pinched himself as to make absolutely sure this was no hallucination or dream. His father was not only out of bed, he was sitting up on his own. He still looked ill, but there was color in his cheeks, and he looked like he had more energy than before his latest relapse and sickness had hit. How could such a miracle happen overnight? Tanjiro smiled at his sons and carefully set down his tea before opening his arms. The siblings wasted no time in diving into the embrace. Still mindful of their father's thin frame, Tanjiro, unable to hold back his emotions any longer, bawled. We thought you'd be dead when we got back, Takio sobbed. I thought we'd never see you again. I know, Tanjiro smoothed his forehead. Smoothing down their hair and kissing them both on the foreheads. I'm so sorry that I worried you. How? Tanjiro gasped as soon as he could catch his breath from how hard he'd been crying. How is this possible, Father? I thought for sure we were about to lose you. His father smiled warmly. It seems that Eiji would partly thank for that, Tanjiro. When Tanjiro simply looked confused, he clarified. You told that young man, Yoriichi, to look after me, did you not? I did, yes, but what does that... He's a doctor, Tanjiro! Nezuko clasped her hands together. The most amazing doctor I'd ever seen. He made a tea that cured Father. Tanjiro chuckled. Easy, my daughter. The doctor was clear that it would take much longer for the medication to fully eliminate the substance in my body, but there's still much to be done. But it's curable! Tanjiro's eyes were heat. If you keep drinking the tea, will you be well again? Tanjiro nodded, gaze formed. So it seems. Truth be told, even though Dr. Yoriichi said it would take some time, I already feel better. He raised his eyebrows. I was joking. Dare I say I'm even feeling hungry. That medicine is horribly bitter, but it's so effective and I have no desire to complain. Tanjiro felt of his eyes well up with tears once more, before he could break down again. He was distracted by the rest of his family entering the home. Tanjiro! Takio! Hanako was saying, running to hug him. Isn't it wonderful? Father's up! He's up! Shigeru echoed, dancing around them. From Kia's back, Rokta babbled happily. His mother wore an expression that looked very much like how Tanjiro felt. A little overwhelmed and filled with joy so raw and unexpected that it's almost akin to disbelief. Trailing behind the family was a silent, long-haired wanderer that saved Tanjiro's life. Dr. Yoriichi, apparently. He barely looked any older than he was, and yet... Tanjiro dropped to his knees and bowed until his head touched the ground. Thank you, Doctor! He cried. Thank you so much for helping our family. As the eldest, I swear... As the eldest son, I swear I will work off to pay off any medical debt. It's for as long as it takes. Even if it takes my whole life, I'll do it. And gladly. Thank you! To his surprise, the doctor didn't respond. Tanjiro raised his head. Yoriichi's cheeks were flushed slightly, and he was holding up an anxious protest. There's no debt to pay, he insisted in a voice that was so soft and yet overwhelming. He insisted, you owe me nothing. Tanjiro gaped at him. Distinctly, he'd heard his mother let out a fondly exasperated chuckle. I insist! Tanjiro's volume grew louder. Let me repay you! Yoriichi looked almost panicked at his vehemence, yet peeked towards Kia as if seeking aid. Her quiet giggling boomed until full laugh. It's all right, my dear. We have another way to show our gratitude that doesn't involve you becoming an indentured servant. Jeez, big brother, teased Nezuko as Tanjiro's face turned red. As I said, my treatment will take some time, Tanjiro explained. Yoriichi has requested that he supervise the process, so I don't regress or run into any complications. Hanako chimed in. So in the meantime, we're going to get Mr. Yoriichi the royal treatment. Extra food at dinner, super soft blankets, all the stuff. There's no need for that, Yoriichi interrupted hurriedly. I don't want to impose. I mean it. And when I say you owe me nothing. Takeo made a face and raised an eyebrow. Man, you guys don't talk alike, but you and Tanjiro are really similar, huh? Shigeru placed a small hand on his hips and puffed out his chest. The Kamado family doesn't receive kindness without showing gratitude. Tanjiro rushed forward and took Yoriichi's hand in his own. We'll take good care of you while you're here, Doctor. Please, let me know right away if you need anything at all. You're overwhelming him, big brother, Nezuko joked. He's going to think you're strange. I don't mind. I mean what I said. He placed the comforting hand on Yoriichi's shoulder. Forgive us for being overzealous, but it's truly no bother. We enjoy looking after others in this house. There is no greater joy than sharing blessings we have given. She patted his cheek. So please, don't apologize for burdening us. You are no such thing. In the face of the unified Kamado front, Yoriichi had no choice but to bow his head in agreement. Very well, if you insist, he acquiesced. Notes. Taisho's secret number 1. Yoriichi has a perfect poker face. Even those with enhanced senses would have a difficult time figuring out whether or not he's telling a lie. Fortunately, he's a very honest boy and usually only lies to avoid unwanted socializing. So that was chapter 1 of this fic. And once again, it is titled The Doctor Who Dances with the Dawn. And honestly, I've been wanting to podfic this for a while, and I'm glad I finally got the chance to. But yeah, I'll see you back next week for Agasuno Boylands, Lightning and Thunder. And again, there is a chance. Also, starting with this fic, I'm going to be posting a lot more variety of fics due to the fact that I am making a new schedule for myself in terms of posting, to accommodate for a lot more fics, since I currently have about 5 other fics that I'm waiting to podfic. Primarily, I just have to design the thumbnails for them, since, as I said in my post, I'm going to be drawing all my thumbnails by hand now, except for Agasuno Boylands, Lightning and Thunder, because that is already someone's art, and I do not know whether or not but I should replace that. Please give me your feedback in the comments. That's first of all. Oh, and second of all, just expect a more variety of podfics from now on. Well, bye guys! See you next week!